Welcome pre-cal students to the homework help video. Here's the assignment right here, page 591, numbers 2 through 35 all. Let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully this homework help video will help you with the problems you're struggling with. Okay, on numbers 2 through 7, the directions say match the part of the circle with a term that best describes it. Now, let's take a look at these, okay? GH. Let's go over here to GH. Notice GH is right here. It's a line that goes through the circle, and notice GH intersects the circle in two places. Well, we have a name for a line that goes through a circle and intersects it in two places, and the name of that line is secant. Okay, so whenever a line goes through the circle, it intersects it in two places, it's secant. So you really should, or excuse me, I apologize. Let me start over. Every teacher makes a mistake, and I just made one. I apologize to you guys. Notice it does not say line GH. Very sorry, feeling really dumb, and I apologize. Notice line GH is right here. Okay, let me change ink color so you can see this better. This is line GH because of the arrow here and the arrow here. Sorry about that. This is segment GH. So it's referring to from here to here. So whenever a segment is inside of a circle, intersecting two parts of the circle, or its endpoints lie in the circle, we do call that a chord. And I apologize, and that is the right answer. Okay, now we're looking at point M. Okay, point M. Now here's M. See that? And see this line right here that's going through this line NL is passing through this point right here. Well, remember, this point here is called a point of tangency. Why? Because this line right here, NL, is intersecting the circle in one place. So line NL is tangent to the circle. And so M is what we call a point of tangency, because point M is where the line is tangent. So we call that E our point of tangency. Now JM, here's JM. Segment JM goes from here to here. We call that a radius, don't we, students? Isn't that called a radius? Sure it is. So segment JM is letter D, which of course is your radius. Now let's take a look at point J. Point J. Now point J, of course, is at the center of the circle, so we call point J the center of the circle, and that would be letter A, the center. Okay? Now let's move on to MH. Here's M all the way over to H. Now notice MH starts on one edge of the circle, it goes through the center and continues on to the other side to the edge of the circle. Well, we call that the diameter. Remember, it's a chord that goes through the center of the circle. So MH, a diameter, and that of course would be letter C. Now the only term left is secant, and secant is GH. Now notice here we're dealing with line GH. Line GH is this whole line, and notice this whole line passes through the circle, hitting or intersecting the circle in two places. Well, we call that a secant line. Okay, so letter F, secant. Okay, this is a really good review of what I taught you guys in the homework. Okay, all right, or in the notes. Let's go ahead and continue. Now let's take a look at numbers 8 through 12. Use the circle to name the coordinates of the points. Okay, so first of all, they want to know the coordinates of the center of the circle. Well, here's the center of the circle, and it looks like to me you're over 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're up 3. So that point right there should be 3, 3. So the coordinates of the center would be 3, 3, which is the correct answer. All right, now the endpoints of a diameter. Well, the only diameter I see is this segment right here, and the endpoints would be at 3, 0, and over here the endpoints would be 3. Then it looks like you're up to 6. So this point right here is over 3 and up 6. So the endpoints of the diameter would be 3, 0, and 3, 6. And so there we go. Now let's talk about a point of tangency. Well, here's a tangent line right here. It intersects the circle in one place, which is right here. So there's your point of tangency. Looks like it's over 6 and up 3 to me. Over 6 and up 3. So the point of tangency should be 6, 3. And let's see why it has... Yeah, I would have to... Yeah, we're going to go with 6, 3. 6, 3. Okay? There we go. All right, moving on to number 11. Endpoints of a chord that's not a diameter. Now understand this segment right here, this diameter, that is a chord. That's a chord. But it says here not the diameter. So do we have another chord? Well, yes, we do. This segment right here, its endpoint lies on the edge of the circle, and its endpoint here lies on the edge of the circle. Okay? So those two endpoints lie on the edge of the circle, so that line is a chord. So what are the endpoints? Well, this one here would be 3, 0, and this one here would be 0, 3. That's the names of this endpoint here and this endpoint here. All right, so those would be the endpoints of the chord. That's not a diameter. Now, what's the endpoints of a radius? Well, there's a lot of radii here, and that's why the answer is so long if you'll look. I mean, look at this. First of all, we have a radius from here to here. We also have a radius from here to here. And we also have a radius from here all the way down to here. Okay? So any of those would work. I'm just going to do this one here all the way to this one here. So your endpoints would be 3, 3, and 3, 6. Okay? Or excuse me, that's incorrect. 6, 3. Over 6 and up 3. So here's the endpoints of the radius. Of course, you could have two other endpoints. You could have that endpoint there, or you could have this one here. Okay? But either way, those are the endpoints of the radius. Okay, moving on to numbers 13 through 16. Now this is really, really, really easy. Here they want us to find the diameter. Find the radius. Well, you know the radius of a circle is always going to be half the diameter. I mean, here's a diameter going all the way across, and then here's the radius in blue right here. Well, the radius, this blue line, is always half the diameter. So with that in mind, just take your diameter and cut it in half. So if the diameter of a circle is 15, then the radius would be 7.5. If the diameter of a circle is 6.5, cut 6.5 in half and you'll get 3.25. If the diameter of a circle is 3, cut that in half and you'll get 1.5. If the diameter of a circle is 8, cut that in half and you will get 4. Pretty simple, students. Pretty simple, okay? All right, numbers 17 through 20. Here we're going to find the diameter, and they're giving you the radius. Well, think about it. The radius is always half the diameter. So if you have a radius of 26, I'm not sure why I didn't blot these answers out, but if you have a radius of 26, if you'll double 26, you'll get 52. The diameter is 52. If you have a radius of 62, multiply it by 2 and you'll have a diameter of 124. If you have a radius of 8.7, multiply that by 2 and you'll have the diameter 17.4. And if you have a radius of 4.4, multiply that by 2 and the diameter will have to be 8.8. So that's really pretty simple, students. We're just simply taking a given radius, doubling it, and finding the diameter. Okay, moving on to numbers 21 through 26. Name the term that best describes the given line, segment, or point. Okay, CD, segment CD. Let's come over here and look. Here's C, and here's D. So segment CD. Well, students, you need to know that's a chord. It's a segment inside of a circle in which its endpoints lie on the circle. We call that a chord. So the answer to 21 is going to be chord. All right, let's take a look now at number 22. Line FG. So this entire line right here, FG. this entire line right here. Well, notice that entire line intersects the circle at one place, right here. Well, anytime a line intersects a circle in one place, we call that a tangent. So we would call this a tangent. Now let's look at segment EC. Segment EC. Well, here's E, here's C. Notice the segment goes through the center of the circle and its endpoints lie on the circle. Well, anytime you have a segment whose endpoints lie on the circle and it passes through the center like it does here, we call that a what? Isn't that called a diameter? Sure it is. So this would be called a diameter. Now let's look at AB, segment AB. Well, here's A at the center. Here's B with lying on the circle. And so what would we call that segment there? Segment AB. Well, that's a radius, correct? It goes from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle, so we call that a radius, okay? So this answer right here would be radius. Now, number 25, just H, point H. Well, that's called the point of tangency because here's your tangent line right here, and it hits the circle in one point right here, so we call that a point of tangency, okay? So this would be point of tangency. And then letter A, of course, is called the center of the circle. Here's A right here, and so we call that the center of the circle, all right? So there we go, not too difficult, just simply reviewing terms of different parts of a circle. Okay, finally this, and we're finished. Tell whether the line or segment is a chord, secant, tangent, diameter, or radius. So PZ, segment PZ. Well, here's P. Now, it's segment, not line, okay? So segment PZ. Well, that segment is inside a circle, and its endpoints lie in the circle. That's going to be a chord, okay? So we call that a chord. This is a really good review of the notes, students, okay? All right, number 28, segment RT. Well, here's R, here's T, so here's the segment. Isn't that a radius? It goes from the center to the edge of the circle, so we would call that a radius, okay? So there we go. Now let's take a look at ST. ST. Well, here's S right here, and here's T. Notice it's a segment whose endpoints lie on the circle here and here, and it passes through the center. So we definitely call that a diameter. A diameter. Now, notice this next one here is line PZ. So this whole line passes through the circle and intersects it in two places. So what do we call a line that passes through the circle and intersects the circle in two places? Well, we call that a secant line. A secant line, okay? And then line VW. Line VW. Well, here's V, here's W, so here's line, not segment, here's line WV or VW. Well, isn't line WV, doesn't it intersect the circle in one place right here? Definitely. So what do we call that? Don't we call that a tangent line? Sure we do. So that point right there will be tangent to the circle. Okay, students, so here we go. I don't know if you noticed my computer just kind of crashed, so I saved the video and now I put everything back up. I think we were right here. So VW is going to be tangent. And that's not the section we were on, was it? We were over here, maybe? No, we were right here. Okay. I hope this is right. Guys, I apologize. My computer just went under, and I thankfully saved the video before the program shut down. So VW is going to be tangent. Okay. Now let's look at line TU. Line, that should be another secant line. Yep, sure is. TU, because it doesn't say segment. It says line TU. So that's a line that goes through the entire circle and intersects it in two places. So we call that a secant line. Again, I've said this 2 or 3 times throughout the video. I'm going to say it again. This is a really, really, really good review for you students. Okay. Now let's take a look at 33, 34, and 35. Identify a chord, a secant, a diameter, a radius, and a point of tangency. Okay, no problem. So for number 33, a chord would be e.g. There you go. There's a chord, e.g. You could also say segment EF. That would be a chord. All right, let's go ahead and let's identify a secant. Okay? A secant. Well, a secant is a line that goes through the circle and intersects it in two places. So I would say line EG. Notice it's not a segment. I put a line right here. Line EG would be a secant line. Now let's look for a diameter. Okay? A diameter. Well, a diameter would be segment FE. Segment FE. That's definitely a diameter. Segment FE. Okay? Well, next let's take a look at a radius. What would a radius be in this circle here? Name a radius. Well, there's actually quite a few. You could say segment CF, segment CE, segment CG. I'm going to put segment CG. Okay? And then lastly, a point of tangency. I'm going to put P of T. Point of tangency. Well, here's a tangent line right here. Notice it's a line that intersects the circle in one place right here, and that one place is D. So D is your point of tangency. Okay? Now I'm not going to be lazy, but I'm going to try to save some time here. I'm going to draw some lines straight across and kind of split this up so I don't have to keep writing the word chord and all of those things over and over. Okay, so we'll quickly do this. Hopefully we can do it quickly. That was not a very good line. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, now let's move these lines so they're a little better. There we go. And there we go. All right, here we go. So let's now find a chord for this circle here. Well, you could say chord, you could say segment MN. Be sure and put the segment symbol up top. That's a chord. You could also say JL. JL is also a chord. Either one of those two would be fine. Now a secant, a line that passes through the circle in two places. Well, that would be MN, only don't put a segment symbol, put a line symbol. Line MN passes through the circle twice. That would be your secant line. Now a diameter, well, I only see one diameter, and that's segment JL. Okay, so notice JL can also be called a chord. It's also called the diameter. Okay, so JL would be your diameter. Now the radius, well, I see quite a few. You could say KR, that's a radius, KR. Or you could say KL, that's a radius. Or you could say KJ, that is also a radius. Any of those would be fine. This or this or this. Okay, and then lastly, a point of tangency. A point of tangency, we'll look for a tangent line. Here's your tangent line. And notice this tangent right here at U. So our point of tangency would be point U. Point U. Okay, and then last problem, we're finally done. So here we go. Name a chord in this circle. Well, there's actually quite a few. You could say segment LM, that's a chord, or you could say segment PN, that's also a chord, any of those. Okay, how about a secant? Well, we're looking for a line that passes through the circle in two places. Well, I see line LM or ML. Line LM is a line that passes through the circle in two places. Now, how about diameter? Well, I only see one diameter, and that's going to be segment PN. Segment PN is a diameter. And then lastly, we're dealing with the radius. Well, I see quite a few radii. I see QR, that's one radius. I see QP, that's another radius. And I see QN, that's another radius. All of those are radii of the circle. And then a point of tangency. Well, here's a tangent line right here. And notice it hits the circle right here at K. And so the point of tangency would be point K. Point K. Okay? And that would be your point of tangency. I really hope this homework help video has been a help to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.